Good morning and welcome to another episode of Charlotte County Through the Decades. This month, in June of 2021, we are in the 1950s. So we are about halfway there in our journey telling the story of Charlotte County's 100 years. And today, I have a very fascinating story to tell you, and I have to let you all know this has been truly interesting and intriguing doing the research for this and putting all of this together. So I'm really excited to share it with you today. So you may or may not recognize our surroundings. So we are at Murdoch, the current county administration center. To my left, your right of the screen, is US 41. And today, this is a very busy road, right? We travel on this every day. You can hear the traffic noise here. But I want to take us back to a time when US 41 is not trafficked to the degree that it is today, and that this area is still very rural and still not under development. So we are going back today to 1954 to probably one of the most, if not the most, transformative event in Charlotte County's history, right? And again, that can be debated, but I definitely think this needs to be certainly in the top 2 or 3 when we think about things in Charlotte County's history. So, 1954, Tamiami Trail, US 41, is a much smaller road, a much less trafficked road than it is today. This entire area, what is now most of Port Charlotte, or pretty much all of Port Charlotte, is cattle lands, timberlands, under the control of A.C. Frizzell, who, as a businessman, as a lumber giant, has built up this area, and not in the development sense, but has built an empire here, a cattle empire, lumber empire, and has amassed tens of thousands of acreage in this part of Charlotte County. But in 1954, this is all going to change, and Charlotte County's path is going to go off in a very different direction. So in 1954, A.C. Frizzell is going to sell his land. Now, the story is not as simple as one might think. This is not simply him signing over the deed to these acreage and then suddenly, miraculously, Port Charlotte appears. Not at all that way. And today, we're just going to focus on 1954 and 1955, this very short window, but a very important window in this early development. So, July 1st, 1954, the Punta Gorda Herald announces 78,000-acre land deal pens. Frizzell Realty sale to mean big projects. So this is just the teaser, as we would call it. Frizzell issues a statement. He says, a contract for the sale of approximately 70,000 acres of land lying in the counties of Charlotte and Sarasota to J.H. Buchanan and Associates of Miami was entered into this past week. Not until September does the actual deal close. And we know this not only from the newspaper, but also from the clerk of court deed records as well. So September 23rd, 1954, the Herald announces, big land deal closed. Trail to Bay project will be started soon. West Coast land development firm pays Frizzell $2.3 million for 70,000 acre 2 county tracts. And I'm just going to read just a little piece of this because this is just so interesting to follow this story on the ground as it unfolded. What ranks as the largest and most important single real estate transaction in history of this area was closed here Tuesday. In the deal, A.C. Frizzell sold in excess of 70,000 acres of land, the majority in Charlotte County, with the remainder in Sarasota County, at a price, according to documentary stamps, in excess of $2.3 million. The purchaser was Florida West Coast Land Development Company with offices in Miami. Now, I know what some of you may think. I thought the Mackles bought A.C. Frizzell's land, right? The Mackle brothers, very famous housing or home builders based in Miami, who had been active under the Mackle Company Incorporated that their father had started, not just in Florida, but other places as well. Here's the trick, and this is where you have to really deep dive into the information. Frizzell does not sell his land to the Mackle brothers, to the Mackle Company. Now, the Mackles do have an interest, a financial interest, in this Florida West Coast Land Development Company, which is a subsidiary of a Canadian company, the Florida Canada Corporation. And I know this gets confusing, and believe me, I've been researching this the last few days and the last couple of weeks, and it's very puzzling. But you just have to kind of follow the money, follow the trail of names, and it gets you to your destination. So Florida Canada Corporation, which was created, right, to cater to Canadian investment firms in Florida, because, right, the Canadians have an interest in Florida just like everyone else does after World War II. They create a subsidiary, the Florida or the West Coast Land Development Company. This is the company that buys Frizzell's land, that negotiates with Frizzell, and that orchestrates the deal. The Mackles have an interest in this company, and they have been building homes in Florida in the early 50s prior to this, right? But they are not the ones that actually buy that land. So very important that we keep that in mind, right? Now, this is not the only development project that is going to start getting going in 1954. This is the big one, right? And certainly because Frizzell owns so much acreage, it is, it deserves to be this very important event and the land deal of the century, if you will, to be very dramatic about it, right? But they are not the only one. In December of 1954, the Herald reports Grove City Shores on Lemon Bay will provide 74 home sites in 24-acre tract in Inglewood District. Grove City Shores on Lemon Bay, a new division at Inglewood, will offer 74 home sites on a 25-acre tract on Highway 775 adjoining Oyster Creek on the road to Placida. A deep canal averaging 60 to 70 feet in width will be accessible to each home. This, as you know, many of you, right, if you've been living here for 5 years or 10 years or 40 years, canals are a big thing here, and that gives you the waterfront property. The canal will carry tidal waters and will admit any watercraft that can enter New Pass off the bay. Later on, in early 1955, new corporation purchases 467 acres of land near city. Nearly 500 acres of land immediately south of town, and they're talking about south of Punta Gorda, changed hands here this week in the largest single real estate transaction in Charlotte County in recent months. So here you have, right, another massive purchase, but 467 acres is not 70,000 plus. So we do see that, there are these multiple transactions, but still very important transactions. And it says the Punta Gorda Corporation, a new company formed by local and area businessmen, purchased the land. Right? The property is located west and south of Highway 41 and fronts on the trail for 4,000 feet. In May of 1955, the Harbor Heights subdivision is announced. June 20th has been set as the starting date on the 7,000 home site project to be known as Harbor Heights. This property consisting of approximately 2,100 acres has been known here for years as the General Danforth land. So we see this pattern, right? And it begins really with A.C. Frizzell's sale and then just keeps going from there. Now back to the Frizzell sale, because I do think this stands out among all these other sales and transactions, right? In May, the Florida West Coast Development Corporation announced that they were going to open a site on the ground in Charlotte County to help facilitate the organization and the ultimate development of that property that they had purchased. And I think this is important because, again, remember, they are headquartered in Miami. And while today you can just hop on I-75 and get over to Miami in no trouble, right? At the time, in 1955, the Tamiami Trail is your only way to Miami from here. So this is not that, they can't just come for a day and be done with it. So opening a firm, opening an office on the ground is not only important for them, but I think it sends the right message to the people of Charlotte County that they are here to stay, that they care about this investment, and that they want to move it forward. In September 1955, now this is about a year, right? Almost just a year after the initial sale, Frizzell sale, was announced and formalized. The Herald announces, company will start development, model homes on 5,000-acre site. Here's where the Mackles come into play. Mackle of Miami to clear land will start building immediately. We will start work within the next few days on clearing the land for 10 model homes on Highway 41. A spokesman for the Mackle Company told the Herald today, as his company purchased 5,000 acres of land for development from the Chemical Research Corporation. And I know what you're thinking, not another corporation, but it's not too confusing. The Chemical Research Corporation is the parent company of the Florida Canada Corporation. So yes, I know we have to follow the trail of all these corporations, but eventually we get down to the nitty-gritty. The land transaction was made yesterday at a board meeting in Toronto. Chemical is an affiliate of Florida West Coast Land Company, who maintains offices at King Street in Punta Gorda. The 5,000 acres is a rough triangle lying between Murdoch, El Jabin, the Mackle River, and the town of Charlotte Harbor. So I think this is where we want to keep in mind. The Mackles don't enter the picture immediately in 1954. They come into it as a result of some business decisions on their part, but also because they had a reputation as home builders, not only in Florida, but in other places as well. In October of 1955, the Herald announces that the Mackle Company starts on the marina and canal. We have started work on the Port Charlotte Boat Marina and Canal and expect to have it finished very soon. The marina, which will be approximately 100 feet wide and 300 feet long, is now being dug by the Hooper Construction Company subcontractors on the Port Charlotte at Punta Gorda project. And that's what this becomes known as. So let's backtrack. 1954, A.C. Frizzell sells 70,000 plus acres to Florida West Coast Land Development Company, a subsidiary of Florida Canada and Chemical Research Company. Okay? The Mackles have a financial interest and investment with the West Coast Development. In the fall of 1955, they work out a deal with Florida West Coast Development to buy part of the tract, part of the land that Frizzell sold under this Port Charlotte Inc., Port Charlotte at Punta Gorda Incorporated, which becomes a subsidiary of the Mackle Company, right? So, and here, November 3rd, 1955, biggest land deal recorded. One of the biggest land sales ever recorded in Charlotte County went on the official records last week when Florida West Coast Land Company deeded over to Port Charlotte Inc., a division of the Mackle Company, 6,288 acres of land in the county plus 760 acres in Sarasota for the sum of $2.2 million. Now, how much did we say Frizzell received for that land in 1954, a year earlier? $2.3 million, or in excess of, but it does seem, let's go with that ballpark figure of $2.3 million. Frizzell receives $2.3 million for upwards of 70,000 acres. A year later, Florida West Coast Land Development sells the Mackle Company 6,200 acres for $2.2 million. I am not a math person. Many of you may not be math people, but we can all see that the price per acre has gone up dramatically. Now, how A.C. Frizzell felt about this, I do not know. Perhaps he was really annoyed. Perhaps he didn't care. He had his $2.3 million. But it is very interesting in a modern historical sense to think about that and think about how much money now is changing hands, the value of this land, and this discrepancy or this difference in value was noted by the Fort Myers News Press. They published an article kind of basically saying, it's interesting that Frizzell a year ago paid almost what you're paying the Mackles for triple, quadruple that acreage, right? So people notice that, but things move on and the development moves on. And certainly the Mackles aren't complaining, and maybe Frizzell wasn't complaining either, right? And in later that same month, the Mackles are going to put out an ad in the Herald, and I'll just kind of turn this over and hopefully you can see. This is the pre-sale opportunity for homes. Now, maybe you are wondering, did they build homes in several months? Were there homes on the ground in October, November of 1955? No, there are not. And I'm going to read a very small article, and this comes from the December 1955, the middle of, I think, December 15th. Mackle Company officials declared that sales at Port Charlotte are far beyond our greatest expectations. This is good. Although our national advertising program is not yet in full swing, so the advertisement I showed you, this is local. This is local and maybe even regional to try and, cut people a break, get people in on the action before this goes nationwide. So although our national advertising program is not yet in full swing, we have sold almost 200 lots at Port Charlotte since we opened several weeks ago, and sales are coming in every day. So here's the thing. Before 1954, the Mackle brothers, the Mackle Company, they were home builders. They were not developers. They built homes. Everything changes for them and for Charlotte County in 1954, 1955. Now, with Port Charlotte Inc., they are selling lots before anything exists. In some cases, in a lot of cases, before those lots have even been created. They had plans, they had drawings, but this doesn't exist. What they are selling does not exist on paper. So they are now not just home builders, they are now land developers. They are now selling lots before anything exists. And this is a dramatic shift in the history of land development, not just in Florida, but nationwide as well. And I think it's important to think about, when we think about development in this area, not just what's happening here, but what's going to keep happening in Charlotte County, in Southwest Florida, in Florida, right, where you have the selling of land, the selling of lots before anything really exists. And we don't have time to talk about it today, but things do get a little bit out of hand. And I think if we look at, development today, or we look back on these developments that were created in the 50s, 60s, 70s, they did some things right, but they did some things wrong too. And I think there's no harm in saying that. I think it is important to highlight that. One final thing before we go today. And I know I'm kind of leaving you on a cliffhanger, right? We haven't built anything yet, but I do think telling this story sets the stage for what's going to come. And perhaps we will explore that in our coming programs next month and the following. But before we go today, I do want to plug a new book by a historian called The Swamp Peddlers. Fantastic title. by Jason Buick, and he is going to be coming here to Charlotte County to speak. He will be at the Mid-County Regional Library and the Punta Gorda Charlotte Library in August. I think it's well worth a read. I'm only a little bit of the way in, but I think it definitely helps to explain the nitty-gritty, what's going on the ground as this development unfolds. Good things, bad things, and everything in between. We have many copies available at the library, so please help yourself. Put those on hold. Come pick one up. And tune in next month when we tackle the 1960s and perhaps a little bit more of what was going on here in Port Charlotte after the initial land sale in 1954, 1955. Until then, see you next time.